Hello and welcome to this movie Hangouts movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And I have with me two participants, and it's Talmon from Hungary. So Talmon.
Hey.
And we have Mike, and you're located in Canada, or?
Yeah, Ottawa, Canada.
Ottawa, Canada. All right. And you, if anyone's watching this, you can participate with questions, and we will answer them. So I will begin explaining a little bit about this movie for those of you that haven't seen it yet. So it's about two persons that are heavily into drugs that decide to go and take a visit in Las Vegas. And so they go on this venture of taking lots of drugs, wrecking cars, going to clubs, partying, and that's in essence what they do throughout the movie. So let's get to the question here. And the first thing I want to ask you, Mike, is how is self-interest portrayed in this movie?
It's multifaceted. It's portrayed as, you want to get your self-interest at all costs. The point where these guys, they're going to do their drugs and they're going to do what they want to do no matter what. So which also paints the picture of tremendous consequence, if you will, which is very self-destructive. Like as you mentioned, the cars being totaled, just damage everywhere throughout the movie.
And so, yeah, there's lots of damages. And if we look at, sort of the vibe that the movie gives off, what is it? In what kind of light does it show this total havoc, Talmon?
For me, it felt like it's like a fearlessness. It tries to sell, like trying to find this freedom within the system, and then they just go and get what they want. And the important thing is they try to feel themselves good, like what they feel to do, which is good for themselves, but themselves only. And then within that, going into this obsession and basically a mind possession of always feeling good, which is only an idea in the mind. And then basically they go and wreck everything and then abuse everything around, and then they do not question.
Yeah, exactly. So in the movie, what they're doing is they're searching for the experience. And from what I've seen, the movie portrays it in this very humorous and fun way, where they try to cover up what's really going on in the movie and know what they are causing. So, Mike, would you say, or that even though the movie sort of is portrayed humorously and in a fun way, that what these characters are doing are in fact reckless?
Absolutely, it's reckless, and it comes across basically as the point that they don't necessarily realize how reckless they're being, because they're in search of that high, that feel-good experience, and it really becomes, when you use drugs and are engaged in that activity so much, it's a form of addiction that you're chasing after the next pill or the next experience, if you will, and it's a total real abandonment from the actuality of your participation within your environment.
Yeah. And I know that both of you guys, you've had experiences with drugs and with a similar type of lifestyle. So Talmon, can you sort of relate to what these characters are going through and causing to their environment?
Yes, definitely. And I'm just seeing a question Yogan's asking, like, do you think some people take drugs to not feel fear or to not feel other negative experiences, to hide them, in other words? And in fact, yes, I was looking within myself to basically find myself fearlessness, like this experience of running towards fear and then basically facing my fear and not realizing that I was acting upon my fear, basically. And then with that, I created many experiences and then even faced self-destruction, so to speak. And yes, it was interesting because I felt like I am invincible, you know, because you are obsessed in this idea of freedom, and then just the fear you try to chase, and then basically what I've realized, it's based upon fear, because why I would want to face and overcome my fear? Because I have fear. Otherwise, I would just stop and then be here. It's simple.
Yeah, so when you were on this trip to sort of remove all fear, what happened to your life? Did you become, you know, did you expand or grow, or did it diminish?
In a way, I learned a lot of stuff, like facing this unknown. I got used to it because my life always fell apart. I had nothing stable, but I was striving towards this stability because I was looking after my own stability, and I was destroying my own life, and then everything around me always fell apart. And then I realized that it is not really working. And then these things, this lifestyle is just catalyzing up my own starting point. What also in the movie is depicted quite a funny way, but they never stop and question that why they do these things and what is the starting point. Like this fear or anger they live out. They never stop and ask. And all I had to do is to stop and ask that why I am doing this.
Yeah. What experienced any form of consequences developing from this type of lifestyle where you use drugs to go to the next high?
Yeah, I think it's not really supporting. Sorry, I didn't know who you mentioned.
Yeah, I asked Mike, but
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't catch the first part of that,
Yes.
Victor.
Okay, go, Mike.
Can you repeat the first part, Victor? Sorry, you cut out there for a moment.
yeah, okay. So I was asking, like, have you also, because I know you also have experience from drugs in your life, and what have you experienced been the outflow of that? Have you found that your life has become more consequential, or have you found anything cool and supportive in taking drugs?
I would definitely say there's been elements of both sides. Like there's been some pros and there's been some cons. Like for instance, well, let's go back to my earliest experiences, and I would say, you know, I garnered some insight into seeing the nature of my own suppressions, if you will, whereas I wasn't really considering how I had been accepting and allowing myself to operate in my everyday state. And so from that perspective, drugs can be like a temporary window to look at yourself and how you typically operate. But then here comes the catch-22, is that you know, that experience is cool, So then you want to, go back and relive that again and again and again, and then that's where it becomes counterproductive, where you then are, well, for myself, then, spending more and more time consuming myself within such activities of seemingly the same self-investigative process where I'm looking at my suppression, but then not really doing too much to actually walk all the change kind of thing, or where I deem it that I can only really look at my suppression through the use of drugs. Like if I'm not under the influence, I believe for some time that I didn't have the capacity to really help myself as good as I could if I used drugs. So I, for a long time, viewed drugs as the solution for humanity, if you will. So I was very pro-drug, and my message of even what initially I was seeing kind of got convoluted and lost because I was lost within seeking another experience.
Yeah. Yes, I can relate to that point of thinking that drugs is the solution. And I actually remember when I was a teenager and I found this drug called marijuana, and I was quite heavily in it, and I had this fantasy or idea of sort of living in a village with these small houses, and it was so cool, and everyone was smoking marijuana and being friendly with each other. And really, when I look at it now, I can see how it was really all a fantasy in my mind, because the fact is that living in such a village wouldn't have been anything that I wanted. I mean, everything that I really wanted to have was this high experience being, well, high on marijuana, so to speak. So I have also seen, I have also friends, and many have gone into this point of pro-drugs and looking at drugs as a solution. And Talon, I know that you have used drugs in a sort of spiritual process, and that you also have connections with that type of people. So would you say that drugs is a solution, and my fantasy of living in this village with houses, that it's realistic?
Yeah, it's cool to bring this up because as you say, yes, this is like a impression you get on the drug, and then you want to live out. For instance, this friendly. For instance, my lifestyle was like this acid hippie culture, and I am still in contact with these people. And then there are good stuff I see, like practical things, how to live together and share equally the food, these kind of things. I think we could learn, but as people go into this spiritual fuck up, as I refer it, because it's not really related to Earth anymore. It's more about the feelings and the positive, and then disregarding facts. And then I was not aware that I was after this fantasy and not facts for a while. And then I created bubbles, and then I unconsciously attracted people from the same mindset, and then we created bubbles. And then facing the world system, especially when we want to change something, it can be really obvious that this doesn't work and cannot be a solution because it's just a bubble, because just based on feelings and feeling good and ideas what are not really facts. So yes, with drugs I accumulated these kind of fantasies, but as I stopped taking drugs, I started to see facts, and facts are not bad things, but the consequences what we face are our responsibility, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, from what you're saying, I'm able to see that when I took drugs, I was also a form of a hippie, and I sort of had this idea that I understood how to solve problems in the world. You know, it was, for example, just remove the money, or just I don't know, give everyone marijuana and everyone can be happy. Now, when I started to, you know, when I've left that point of having this positive experience and looking at the world from this starting point of, well, fantasy, I've actually been able to form a much more like coherent and real perspective of actual solutions could be wisdom that would create a difference. And so, Mike, I know we discussed this before the Hangout, like possible solutions. For example, when we are the drugs, what is it we can do for else? Sort of more grounded understanding, you know, how to deal with the problems.
Victor, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We didn't hear you, Victor.
Oh God. So I solution. What do you see the solution when you are in this down, and what do you see the benefits of getting and being able to see the world with, so to speak, you know, clear eyes?
Okay, Victor, I could make out a little bit of what you're asking me there. Is about solutions. What do I see solutions for how to see the world with clear eyes? Is that right? With regards to drugs?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So around the topic of drugs, I think it's important to have good education. So because the way the education around drugs right now works, so much of it is fear mongering, if you will. Like just look at this bad consequence, or just saying don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, and you know that creates a curiosity within a lot of people, like especially the young adults, if you will, where it's that childish mentality of, you know, the parent says don't do this, so you're gonna react and want to do that, just to spite the parent, if you will. So if there's more support around the topic as a whole, where there's an understanding of I would say it extends to how our emotions and feelings and thoughts work, because that's kind of integral to what's happening within the drugs experience, is that your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are intensified and then suppressed even further to give you kind of a window into yourself. So to sum it up, it's really all about the education and the access to support about the situation, so that given the right support, everyone can make the best decision for themselves.
So,
Okay. Looks like Victor is out for a moment.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just keep talking.
All right.
Do you have anything to add to what I just said about the education or the solutions that you see viable?
Yes. Basically, as I see reflected back to the movie, it's like these guys also know that they have this unconscious realization that the system is, so to speak, not working, and it's like a delusion we live, and this human existence is like not really the fullest potential. So they want to break through, basically. And also people take drugs because they want to explore more than they experience daily. And also I had this drive to find out, but there should be more, like as we live this systematic life in the cities, and then these jobs and everything. So basically that's a point what made me into this, and then wanting to find out, because realizing I cannot believe in this system. I cannot believe what my parents saying, because obviously they say it because of the fear. And why they do fear, and why do I fear? And then this process started, this investigation, because it's like I do not believe anyone else, but I only believe in myself. And then within my mind I take the stuff, and then I start to believe that I am saying to myself that this is good, and not seeing that my mind is taking over, and then just saying to me, take this, take more, and then I am lost, as I see. And this is the education we have to, because how our mind is basically working, we have to realize first, I think, and how these drugs are affecting our minds, as I see.
I agree. I agree. It's interesting, very much so, because, well, the extent of which how our mind operates is so extensive, and I mean, well, do you see there being any practical application of drug support?
Recently, some foundations are emerging, like these maps. They try to do it in a scientific way to like help the PTSD veterans in a controlled environment to relieve the traumas. But you know, I'm basically skeptic because I am not there. I do not know exactly what is moving them. But from my own realizations, I see that you don't need any drug to realize who you are and what would be the solution, because it's all here. Sometimes drug can induce some experiences, but then one can really lose themselves in the identification with the experiences and with the drug, as you told that you need this drug in order to realize bullshit. It's dangerous, I think.
For sure, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's unnecessary for sure, because it's like taking the long road to figure something out that is quite simple.
Yes.
For sure. When we were talking off the air just before the hangout started, you mentioned about how the movie finished off. You want to go over that again? That was a cool point you brought up.
Yes, it's basically as the main character was like in this job that he was writing. He's like a journalist, and then he tried to write his work throughout the movie, and he couldn't do it, basically. And then as the movie ends, as they come off the trip, basically, he's writing his own experiences. Literally, he wrote this. What Leary took down with him was the central illusion of a whole lifestyle that he helped create. A generation of permanent creepers, failed seekers, who never understood the essential old mystic fallacy of the acid culture. The desperate assumption that somebody, or at least some force, is tending the light at the end of the tunnel. So basically he's explaining that as a bitter end, that he is realizing that it's not really a solution, and then we kind of fucked up, but we don't know what now comes. But this lifestyle is not really a solution. I felt like he was feeling with this, and then going away.
So I'm back. I'm sorry I dropped out. I have bad internet here. So Which question, Rion? Well, I'll simply put the question here, but not quite many from our participants. So, we have one here from Adele. So she asks, when you first take drugs, you have no idea what it's like, so you don't have an agenda with it then, but just experiment. Then, like you guys are saying, they give you a feeling of no fear. So there was no question there, but if any one of you would like to comment upon it. Salomon, for example.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, go ahead.
all right. So for me, it was like I think I still had fear, but I couldn't grab or define my fear. So it was like a complete and continuous falling. Like I am always falling into this presence, and then it was really frightening. But in a way, I couldn't identify myself with the fear because the fear was already beyond. So it was like a tube experience, like not really explainable, but just being here without fearing from fear. That was the notion what I got, so to speak. And then I did not transcend fear, but I got stuck on wanting to transcend fear with the drug kind of experience I had. And all I had to do is just stop drug and stop fear by realizing what actually I was fearful from. Because I was so overwhelmed with the experience, I did not ask the obvious common sense that what I fear from and what would be the practical solution to stop this fear.
Yeah.
And for that, no need to drug. But if one is suppressing oneself so extensively, there are walls within one's mind. Because of the layers of self-dishonesty, one feels like one has to break through, but is also unnecessarily with drugs, because one can develop self-honesty. With the Desteni process, it's just writing self-forgiveness, and it is more direct and obvious and stable way.
Yeah, I relate that in my youth, so to speak. I remember trying to send fear through, well, going out is really fear doing. I remember one time I took a guitar and then I was sort of like play.
I didn't catch that, Victor.
What the in that way is that you just get to the root of it. What you do is really go into a form of ego and then try to fight the fear. And what that does is that it really charges up and more. And yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I get it. Like you face the fear and then you charge up with the energy of the fear to face the fear and stop the fear. And thus you are in the loop all the time because you need the energy from the fear to overcome fear. As I see. But you,
Totally.
Victor, we do not get any words, so to speak, sometimes. Just to inform.
Okay.
Yeah, so what he was saying about the fear and the ego with the drugs is that, well, you get that fearless experience, call that maybe the positive love experience, like no fear, but it's the illusion, so to speak, because what's happening is that because the core of your actual being, your mind, your programming, is so rooted in fear that you create this experience where you excrete the ecstasy-like experience where you have no fear, but it's actually just a temporary suppression where, in fact, you're going through, you know, the compounding and regeneration of more fear, and there's just that bleak window where, you know, you feel great because, well, you don't feel like you're in the fear, but what's happening is like you said, Talman, you're just kind of going through the cycle and the loop, and it's where you are in the loop before, you know, it gets shittier.
Yes, in the movie, I remember this scene when they are in the Bazooka Circus, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he's saying exactly this, Dr. Gonzo. I think I am getting the fear, and this is quite specific because I think I am getting the fear, you know, and then it just describing itself, basically. And then also, it's like I am giving permission to my mind to be overcome with this fear, and also I am giving permission to the drug to handle this fear. So basically, I am giving my power away, and more and more I take the drug, I give that permission away from self here. And this is interesting because no one realizes this, that I am getting more and more free. But what I do with the drug is just patching all the points up to completely suppress this fear with these realizations, what I do not live out, but find excuses and justifications why I do not have to change in order to just prevent fear, I think.
Totally. And what's funny or ridiculous about it all, and the movie portrays it quite well, is that, you know, while under the influence, so often like the simplest of tasks seems so extreme, you know, like, oh fuck, like I have to pay the guy to get into the circus, and I'm gonna have to go through the door. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, keep it together now, like it just so ridiculous, and it's just so ridiculous, and that's like what it's all about, is well, fucking with the fear, basically, which is just fucking with yourself. It's like you're fucked in the ear, so to speak, is how you hear and how you see, is just yeah, totally fucked.
So, do you hear me now, by the way? I'm back again.
Oh, hey, Victor.
Yeah, we hear you better.
Okay, so I have removed my image to improve bandwidth there.
Okay.
So, okay, so I can't see the questions, the Q&A, because my bandwidth is so bad. So, sorry guys for you that have asked questions. We'll have to skip them. So, question here. We have discussed self-interest a lot in this hangout, and an interesting question I have is whether it's possible to live self-interest in a way that isn't harmful. Tell me, would you say there is such a way?
Interesting point, because as I see, even in the word, self is in the rest, so to speak, because if I really want to find out what is my best interest for myself, is like considering all others equally, and not seeing this point, it's like already consumed with self-interest without realizing what self is, basically. And then practically what it would mean in this current human system to live in the interest of me, which not harming, is pointing back to the energetic drive, what is moving people and what is directing people's life, like the money system. Because it looks so bad, but actually it's the point of manifested consequence of this self-interest. And also, as we can equalize our self-interest, it could be equalized in the system as well. So interesting to consider what I would like to have to give others. As I see, it's like would be common sense in the sense of real interest. Something like that. Sounds like Victor is singing, but not coming through.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Not really.
Okay. Well.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, I'm here again.
Okay.
So, if you can hear me about this point of self-interest, do you have a perspective on how to live it without people?
How to live it without what? Sorry?
With
The self-interest in a way that's best for all. Well, that's it right there. Really is, and I think it's as simple as just realizing that yourself is a part of everything else here. That there's not this separation where my actions don't have impact on the actions of others. That each of us is a teammate, if you will. Like we're all here on Team Earth, if you want to look at it from that perspective, and that all actions have consequence, if you will, like cause and effect. And so this case, to keep on point here specifically about let's say the drugs, I think there can be support for people exploring drugs in this point, but I think it's got to be in such a way where it's a controlled environment, where there can be somebody walking with the person who's using the drugs so that they're not lost. Because like we see in the movie, that's what it's all about, is getting lost, and there's no real guidance to help one realize anything or see how, see the point of what's happening here. So I think, yes, there can be a practical application if we set up the right parameters, so to speak, to support another. In a way that would kind of be like, in the way that medicines are used to help people going through an illness, so to speak. Because, if we consider the actuality of our reality here, there's a serious human condition happening, and it's the way we all exist within our minds. And so in a way, the drug in the right circumstance could kind of help somebody through a particular mind fuck, if you will. But the person really has to kind of want to change themselves, and so it could be supportive in that regard. An interesting scenario comes to mind is, I believe it was back in the late 60s or 70s, maybe even all the way up to the early 80s. It was, what was it? Family or relationship experts, was it psychiatrists, I guess, dealing with married couples. They used to have them take ecstasy in a session together.
For communication.
Yes, to open up the communication that was so suppressed, was otherwise so difficult to get to that same point, because their guards were just so let down that there could actually be huge improvement within the span of the session of a few hours or so. And so that's very cool, and that's interesting. And again, it goes back to what I'm saying, if given the right structure of support, guidance with the education, we can support somebody in overcoming barriers, obstacles.
Yes, and also not just becoming wasted, so to speak, because this word I think describes so well that we waste our environment with these reckless parties, and then we waste ourselves, and
For
then
sure.
within that we admit that we are unable to solve, we are unable to change, we just wasted, fuck everything, and it's obviously has a consequence for others, but it's responsibility obviously.
Totally. It's interesting because the big issue here is, well, self-interest, right? Like the whole aligning with what is real self-interest. Like we're seeing here that there's this disillusion of even what is self, so to speak, where myself is not related to any other self here, yet seeing the bigger picture here that my actions have consequence, your actions have consequence, we're all here working together, and this goes back to what you said, Telemann, about the money system, because the money system is the glue, so to speak, that keeps the flow of how it is we're working together, and the actual structure of how we're working together, the design, the rules, the coordinates, the coordinations of how things flow is in a way that's not of all of our best interests. So we're just continuing the loop, which is just like the drug experience, the loop where it's like, oh, there's some good here, but then there's more bad here. And we're seeing that with the divide in the classes of population between all the pyramid structure style of wealth, where for some to have it up here, there's got to be a lot more down there to hold them up there, and it doesn't have to be that way at all. But what it requires is for us to, restructure, redesign, basically take back our responsibility, which has been abdicated, and that starts with ourselves. Which
Yes.
Desteni, the Desteni process is an invaluable tool for doing that in a structured, supportive way.
Yeah, definitely. Because also for me, I had this lifestyle. Man, I faced death literally before starting a process of self-forgiveness. And then I've realized that there is this exit right in front of me. And it's simple. I just use the Destiny tools, and then nothing mystical requires, and nothing specifically magical requires. It's just stuff what must be done, and then realizing that responsibility is not a bad thing, because I was always running away from responsibility, and realizing that I was running away from who I really am, and to find out who we really are, it's within the responsibility of our actions, I think.
Totally. That's. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It's just like if we have resistances towards responsibility, it's just obviously mindfuck. We have to walk through. It's the indication, I think. If we resist responsibility, we are not yet ourselves, so to speak.
I agree 100%.
Cool.
It's very fascinating, this point about responsibility, and we can link it to the drug culture, the self-interest, is that responsibility is the thing, well, for myself too, that I wanted to avoid at all costs. It was all about minimizing responsibility, thinking like, oh yeah, somebody else will figure that out, or will do that because they want to do that, and not even realizing how I was minimizing myself to such a capacity where my potential and ability to express myself was being hindered by my own design, my own choosing, by saying, no, I don't want to participate here, and that's just such bullshit. Like you said, like the ultimate mindfuck is not wanting responsibility, which is interesting because if you just look at the word responsibility, it's the ability to respond, move, function. And then we go back to like the guys in the movie going into the circus or in any of the other scenes when they're under a bunch of intense drugs, is that they couldn't move, they couldn't function, and they had no responsibility. They could barely respond to the most basic of functions.
Yes, cool you bring this up, because I remember we were tripping our mind away, and then if someone was on this high dose of acid or something like this, we even allowed to accept that, like, oh, don't bother him with paying, he's now on acid, he's like on a mystical trip, but he was unable to even speak or just walk properly. And it feels like, yeah, he's in the divine. I don't know what the fuck. It's so.
That reminds me. I can remember doing a big dose of magic mushrooms one time, and me and some friends were at this cottage party, and a guy asked me, like, we were just eating them, and they were just kicking in, and a dude asks me if he'd like me to throw the football into the water so I could go run and take a dive and catch the football. And my initial reaction at the time was, dude, do you know how high I am right now? Like, you expect me to do that?
To throw a ball?
yeah, or catch a ball. And it's just, and I don't know. Well, yeah. So just the ridiculousness of a basic point there, and what's fascinating about that there is I recognize my words in the moment there, where I said, okay, wow, I'm basically giving this power